Okay, so I'm just going to cover a few more points here. I'm going to end up also leaving you with a little bit of a documentary watch on Reconstruction. Um, I would like to also point out that some of the things that you could watch in that silent film Birth of the Nation that would be made later portrayed the South as a place of anarchy where the blacks were taking over. And like all propaganda films or propaganda ideas politically that distorts the truth, it's not usually something that's completely made up, but it takes a certain truth and then takes it to a whole new level. No doubt that that honeymoon period, so to speak, where blacks are having a chance to participate in government in the South and a chance to be free and to roam, there will be blacks who are going to do things to essentially take revenge or to not show an interest in creating a harmonious society, but to kind of get maybe what they think is their right at the expense of the whites. This is a natural, I think, response, rightly or wrongly, of people who are oppressed by another people and then find themselves no longer in that situation. As a side note, and I always bring in modern history, this is actually kind of the situation that created ISIS. As I've mentioned, that in Iraq, for centuries, the Sunnis were a minority of Muslims that had power, and the majority of the population was a different branch of Islam called Shiites. And when George Bush had the invasion and overthrew the Sunni order and allowed voting for the first time, which should be considered noble, yes, Shiites not only came out in droves finally, they voted in religious and political parties that were in favor of Shiites. And so the tables were turned, and the Sunnis found themselves getting the backlash from the majority population that were often at the disadvantage. And in this case, it kind of does make me wonder about certain things that could have happened on the other end of Reconstruction. In other words, my opinion is that the North went too light on the South. But some of the radicals may have actually had a vision that could have turned things into a situation like we see in Iraq, which is a civil war where, I mean, can you imagine if former black slaves were all given the chance to be the police and the militias in the South, and for the first time had guns and the political establishment, and everything was done to punish everybody from the white Confederate South, you probably would have seen the Ku Klux Klan turn into a type of insurgency where, in a sense, the Ku Klux Klan was like a mini version of ISIS, right? This kind of backlash against the New World Order to where they think that things are not created in a balanced way in the name of religion and in a revised form of that religion, a much, much more harsh form than even before. Okay? So when you disrupt political orders, how do you prevent there to be something like that we're seeing in the Middle East? And my illustration has its limitations, but I think it's significant to this. So, what we do see is that whites used any excesses that were ever enacted by any blacks in the South, or white carpetbaggers, as they were called, coming down from the North, as an excuse to say, look, now we're being oppressed. The white man must defend himself. Okay, so they were using these things as excuses, and in the film, The Birth of the Nation ends up making this kind of look like that's the entire state of things, is why the Ku Klux Klan gets portrayed as a hero redeeming the status of whites, and putting blacks back into an orderly place where they could be contained and create a harmonious society again. Okay, this is the position. Now, I just want to show you though why I think that white America is wrong in thinking that, for instance, black people now need to get over things, and that the world has changed that drastically. I'm going to show you this clip from when I first started teaching this class. It's a new clip.
All right, so here's a toast for starting a new tradition, something new and something that ain't going to be forgotten, right? You ready?
Hi. Hi, I'm Jamie. Nice to meet you. No problem.
This week is a whirlwind for Mauricia Rucker. The 17-year-old senior at Wilcox County High School isn't just going to class. She's also helping coordinate her county's first ever interracial prom. A transplant from the Atlanta area, Mauricia and her family have lived in Wilcox County since Mauricia was a little kid.
Yeah. Yes.
She's a good student, a cheerleader, in the JROTC. And like any high school senior, she wants a huge party with all her friends before she graduates.
I came home one day from school, and we had been talking about in class, we were juniors at the time, so we been talking about prom and what all we wanted to do, how we wanted it to be. And when I got home, I kind of realized the fact that in our county we have a black prom and a white prom. I hang out with everyone. I get along with all the kids at my school, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. So I felt that we should have one together. So I talked to my best friend about it, and within a week of us announcing that this is what we were going to do and trying to get help and support in our county, we already were getting cold shoulders and smart remarks made or ugly glares. It literally spread like wildfire.
So we were chatting with various folks around town today, and some of them said that by bringing up the idea of an integrated prom, that was creating a race issue, or making it suddenly about race when it wasn't. Nobody ever thought about it before. What's your perspective on that?
That's a complete cop-out. It really is. It's their way of saying that, because of the kids creating this integrated prom, no one really thought about the fact that we weren't having proms together and that the school wasn't sponsoring them. That is such a load of crap.
Most residents and business people I talked to weren't really critical of the prom. They didn't like the media attention it brought, and plenty of people didn't want to talk at all. They are afraid of being thought of as racist, backward, stuck in the past. They say every place has its problems, but that's not who they are.
Wilcox County, in general, don't like change.
So here's what I wanted to show you. Yes, this is true. This is 2013, I believe, that Georgia, that place that got the former vice president of the Confederacy to be the senator, had its first interracial prom. And so this goes back to what I try to address. That race in America is not only an issue that's not resolved. Different areas have it less resolved. And I wouldn't just put this all on the South. Oregon has some issues that I don't have time to fully go into, but actually, Oregon was one of the only non-slave states that actually had black codes itself up in the Northwest, that actually blacks were not allowed to live in certain areas and were subject to incarceration and abuse. And really, much language in some of these places, legislative-wise, only ended relatively recently. I mean, this is what I want to point out. I was born in '73. Okay, I got gray hair. I'm an old guy, but not that old. But yet, I was only born a few years after even segregation ended in this country. And so, the question is kind of like what the girl said, where they were blamed for instigating race. Who's really bringing up what? And it doesn't mean that every time. I'm not trying to push on this idea of white guilt or say that some African Americans, some Black Americans couldn't be racist themselves or utilize this conflict to and try to, it could be brought up in many different political contexts in a maybe non-authentic way. That's debatable. But what I'm just trying to say is it's not resolved. And I think that it would be good for Americans to be able to dialogue more, to understand why the Reconstruction really failed to resolve the issues that led to the Civil War in the first place. And the election of Obama was a historic step in at least having our first non-white president, regardless of whether we like Obama or not as a president. But again, that actually has helped recruit many neo-Nazi groups. If you look, his election actually bolstered many race groups in the country that fill a kind of what they see as a counterattack on whites, in the way that Reconstruction saw the liberation of blacks in the South after the end of the Civil War. These are my opinions. Again, you're going to look at the end of the chapter. It's going to cover more about the way the South has approached itself dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War and its own history. And ultimately, the idea that I want to promote is not a hatred or looking down on the South or any other part of America, but just to remind us that, as this gentleman, Joseph Reed, said here, this county doesn't like change. Well, Americans should always, I think, look at changing, because we've been evolving for a long time. And it seems to me change has been good in many, many cases.